unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity, into our 7th year of the podcast. We traveled all over the world just in the last few episodes: Stockholm, Sweden, Sydney, Australia, Taipei, Taiwan, and of course, New York, San Francisco in the States. Today, we're going to Los Angeles to stamp our creative passport. And one of the most common questions I get from my creative friends and entrepreneurs is, I want to write a book. I want to sharpen my message. I want to create multiple streams of content and income. I have all these ideas. How do I get them on paper? And of course, they look at my website and think I've perfected it all because I have a lot of books on there and I have 400 episodes of a podcast. But I'm a learner as well. And I'm a lifelong learner. And that's why I love to learn from my guests. And so I'm going to welcome in today a guest who's not only an award-winning best-selling author in her own right, but also has produced TV and media and coached others and become serial entrepreneur. So welcome in Aurora Winter. Aurora, welcome to the show.
Mark, it's great to be on the show with you. I think I'm a serial entrepreneur catalyst.
There you go.
I like the word catalyst.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Launch people.
Launching people with videos, with books, with a strategic brand message. Absolutely.
Yes, it's great. Aurora's the founder of SamePagePublishing.com, and she's creator of the Spoken Author Method, which I can't wait to get into. She's crafted a lot of award-winning books, expanding impact and income for her clients. And her own book, Turn Words into Wealth, is a blueprint for your business brand and a book to create multiple streams of income and impact. It won an award, Aurora, Outstanding Nonfiction Book in 2022. So congrats on that.
Thank you so much. It's won several awards since then, but it's always nice to be affirmed that the book is useful.
Yes, indeed. I'd love to start there with that title, Turning Words into Wealth, because I think that's what entrepreneurs and experts in all fields really think about when they want to write a book. How can I get my story out for sure, but then how can it help build the brand? What have you found are powerful ways people can use a book
it's so
like
important to just lean into the value of turning words into wealth. I think many entrepreneurs and experts, they focus so much time on their product, their service, and they don't spend enough time working on their message. And every business I've launched, and I've launched several 7-figure businesses, I've had several business exits, it was always the words. Once the words were right, once there was a clear, compelling, concise message, then doors opened, a light bulb went on, people went, I get it, and they invest. Every startup founder I've helped raise capital has gone from raising nothing to raising 7 or 8 figures. And when they came to me, they had a great business. They were super smart. They already had a team. They already had something that worked. But people were like, what? Huh? So I really want people to have some valuable takeaways that they can use right away by listening to this podcast that will help them turn their words into wealth.
Oh, fantastic. And there's something about, and I love your book touches on this, the neuroscience behind all of this, that you can have a great idea, like you said, but I don't get it, or I don't understand, or I forgot it as soon as you said it. What are some of the secrets there that the science says about these stories and messages?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce a way of thinking about this for the listeners. Compelling communication does 2 things, and you need to do them both. I'm sure most people listening to this have already heard the story that we only have 8 seconds to grab attention, that human beings have an attention span less than a goldfish. And that's partially true, but partially people have gotten faster at deciding whether or not your content is worthwhile. So in fact, people usually decide in about 1.7 seconds.
Mm.
So we have to be very quick. So what I like to frame this with, on the one hand, you need a movie trailer mindset. Grab attention, grab it quick. Who is involved? What are the stakes? Boom. I call that the movie trailer mindset, and we can get into the neuroscience of this in a second. But first, I want to frame this conversation by also saying, once you have grabbed attention, people will listen for hours. Joe Rogan has often guests for 3 hours, but there are many podcasts that go for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I call this thinking like a showrunner, thinking like Netflix, to have binge-worthy content, to not just think about one episode, but think about the season, the arc of the characters, the arc of the story, the reason why people should come back and listen to your next video or your next podcast. So I'm getting to the neuroscience in just a second, but I wanted to frame this because I think so many people are focused on that first 8 seconds or the first 1.7 seconds that they forget to also think like Netflix. So we want to do two things. We want to think in the movie trailer mindset, but we also want to have an eye on how can we invite the listener back or the viewer back and engage them? And how can we think like a showrunner so that we have an arc, we have a season, we have things changing, we have a reason to come back and listen next time.
Yes,
Okay, so
for
then,
sure. And I do want to get into the science, so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I love the fact that we get into elevator pitches and in business, our deck and everything. I haven't seen a lot of PowerPoint decks on Netflix. The trailer isn't, that's not a filmmaker mindset, is it? So I love the idea that we're talking production as well
yeah,
as just what are your bullet points.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. My background's in film and TV, so I thought I
Yes,
might as well
but
use my
exactly.
expertise
I love that.
to create sound bites. So there's neuroscience behind it, which you asked about. There's just really 3 steps to the neuroscience. And again, I'm going to use a metaphor or a story to help this make sense. So if you were building a house, you don't start with a roof. You cannot put the roof on first. And this is a classic mistake, especially well-educated people make, is they start at the roof. You can't start there. So what is the roof? The roof is the cerebral cortex. The roof is really, the more educated you are, the more you've been trained to communicate from the brain. But first, we have to start with the foundation. What is the foundational step in communication? It's grabbing attention. It's the movie trailer mindset. So build the foundation, and that just takes a few seconds. It is a compelling short message that attracts the neocortex, that is somehow novel, something new, either something to be aware of that's dangerous or something good for me. So the title of a book, Turn Words into Wealth. That's a neuroscience. Fantasy book, Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. You know what category we're talking about, or this book, Marketing Fast Track. So it's the subject line on your email. It's the title on your YouTube video. It's like, why should I pay attention? Unless we pass that first filter, game over.
Right.
Communication is not talking at length. Communication is when people are listening. All right, so that's the foundation. You do that quickly. What category? Hook attention. It's got to be interesting. It's got to be novel. It can't just be the same old as you've heard from 100 other people. But then many people forget that there's the next step in building a house is the walls. Before you get to your big message, you got to have walls. And so what are the walls? The walls are the second step of neuroscience, which is the midbrain. And the midbrain is the social brain that is always filtering for status. It's filtering for who. Who else thinks this is a good idea? Who is this person giving the message? Do they have low status? This is one reason to be an author. An author has higher status because they have authority. The root of the word authority is author. That can be done very quickly, though. But don't miss building the walls, or you'll have a very short house.
Yes.
So the midbrain is simply, as you said, my book had won an award. So awards on the cover, that's midbrain. You and I talking to each other. I think Mark's worth talking to. He thinks I'm worth talking to. That's midbrain. So don't forget that step, or you'll have a very squat house. Then you can give your message, that cerebral cortex message. But here's another metaphor. Imagine that you're talking to a king and a queen, or a husband and a wife, king and a queen, to make a decision. And I know this is an exaggeration, but it will help you remember. The queen only likes stories. The king only likes data. You need to mix and match your data and your stories to really meet both sides of the brain. But don't go too far on the data, because then you get into analysis paralysis, and people in data don't buy. People buy with stories, with emotions. So
good.
those are the 3 steps to the neuroscience.
I love the metaphor. And listeners, this is worth rewinding and hitting those highlights, those 3 points. You've also introduced a concept called 27X, the power of story.
Yes,
And
I
I
love
love this value idea because, again, we're talking about how to turn words into wealth. There's a value to this. And what is the 27X idea?
I'm always looking for data that will back up my intuitive hit that the story really matters. So many times in my life, I've gone from eating rice and beans to we've got $1 million in the bank account. And how did it happen? 7 words created $3 million for me in 1 week. So I want this for you too. So the data is so fascinating. There was a study done, it was published in the book Significant Objects, and I share it in my book Turn Words into Wealth, where they put 100 distinct objects on eBay, either with a story or without a story. And even PS, here's what we're doing. They were transparent. The 100 stories were written by different people. Some were professional, some were not. And they didn't add hype. They didn't add anything extra to what was being sold, except a story adds meaning. Do not underestimate the value of meaning. Human beings are meaning-seeking creatures. In fact, studies had been done, a different study was done, a taste testing 2 different kinds of wine. The label had been taken off, but people were told that this wine is a $5 bottle of wine. This is a $500 bottle of wine. And they were given a different story about each one. When they tasted the wine, they had their taste buds and their brain lit up differently for the $500 bottle of wine. They had a different experience, but then later it was the same wine.
Yes.
The story adds meaning. So in the case of the book Significant Objects and this data, the example would be you're buying some pot mitts. And the story would be, I remember coming home from school, my grandmother used these pot mitts. She took chocolate chip cookies out of the oven. They smelled so good. And I'd have milk and cookies with her and share my day. You don't get the grandmother, you don't get the cookies, but you do get more significance that adds value to the pot mitts. And the result was that these 100 objects sold for 27 times more. Where in your business can you create 27 times more value? So I really invite people. Steve Jobs practiced for 3 weeks before making an Apple pitch, what to say, where to stand, the intonation, like he practiced it. So I invite us all to spend more time devoted to collecting stories, to mastering stories, to sharing stories, our own stories, the stories of our clients, the stories of the people whose lives we touch, or stories that relate to what we're up to and the transformation that we provide. So I really think that most people know the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. I like to suggest that if you do the 80-20 principle on the top 20%, you'll have 64-4. So 4% of your activities will produce more than half of your wealth and results. And I have experienced time and time again that communication is in that top 4%. It's the biggest lever to move you forward.
Good. We've been talking about stories and turning those words into wealth, mainly through books. But you're also seeing on the horizon, they're current, but also future, new ways to market our words.
Yeah.
And certainly, we can't even have a creative discussion without bringing up that AI thing. But
Exactly.
AI, Kickstarter, all these other vehicles and platforms that authors, entrepreneurs, the landscape is shifting fast. What are you seeing as far as marketing approaches people ought to be watching out and paying attention to?
Oh, thanks for asking, Mark. Yeah, I'm super excited about this. In fact, I'm writing a new book on this very topic, brand strategy in the age of AI. It's coming out in 2026. I think 2026 is going to be a make or break year for authors, leaders, experts, and businesses. And here's what happened in October of 2025 that has actually changed the playing field. And as a TV writer producer, I'm super excited about this because all of a sudden, since OpenAI has released Sora 2, it's actually possible to create absolutely outstanding, amazing movie trailers for your business quickly and affordably. In fact, my team and I offer a fractional showrunner service where we do this. You can see some examples on my YouTube channel, Strategic Basics, but we also have a completely animated one. Sorry, Strategic Basics, excuse me. It's like it's me talking and then a bunch of B-roll and camera, and it's made it more fun. But we also have a fantasy YouTube channel called Anna Zest Series, and it's Pixar. It's like Marvel. It's all animated. And we're doing this for clients now. So I believe, I know the data is YouTube is the #2 search engine. More people find video and find movies. More people find Netflix movies on YouTube than on Netflix. YouTube has 16% of the internet traffic, and more people are loving videos. So I think we're on the cusp of such a huge breakthrough, and the people who jump on it will get the early advantage that early adopters always get. And I think 2026 is the year to jump on this. The metaphor that I think will help people understand this is back in the day, we had newspapers, and then everybody liked newspapers. And then all of a sudden we had radio, and oh my gosh, radio, everybody's listening to radio. And when television came out, it didn't totally kill radio. Podcasts will still exist. Audio will still be valuable. But all of a sudden, TV became the dominant thing. So I think if you don't have a whole brand strategy about how to leverage video, especially on YouTube, but on other platforms as well, that you're going to be disappointed with 2026 because your competitors will. For example, we just launched the Anna Zest series videos on YouTube. They're getting a 12% click-through rate on cold traffic. That's frigging unheard of. And it's why? It's because it's novel. It's because it's new. It's because, wow, you can do that with video. Oh my gosh. And this just changed in October 2025. This is brand new. In September 2025, we couldn't sync the voice to the character. So we could have characters, but you'd have to have text. But
Yes.
now anything almost is possible.
Sure.
And also I want to say this is super exciting. Obviously, as a TV writer, producer, I love the whole idea that I can make this happen for myself and for my clients. So it's super exciting for me. But I also think there's a few things to be aware of, a few dangers. But yes, that's what I think we have 4 human superpowers that we can leverage and amplify our brand with AI. But if you're not cautious, you can friggin' destroy your brand with AI.
Yes.
You don't want generic content.
No. I love that you held up the fantasy book, because we've been talking all sorts of business and nonfiction and everything, and yet you've stepped in to this magic mystery. How have you straddled, or I guess combined, writing fiction, and how has that influenced your creative life?
Yeah, I've written 30 screenplays, one of which was produced, called Eli's Lesson, starring Jack Palance. So I've always written fiction, but then I took a hiatus and just wrote nonfiction, because nonfiction is practical. It's a good way to move the business forward.
Sure.
And then I've returned to my love for fiction. So I've written 3 fantasy books, a ghostwriter or a writing collaborator, and I've written 7 nonfiction books. It's totally different writing fiction than nonfiction. Here's why. If you have a great idea for a new chapter in a nonfiction book, you can just slide it in. Doesn't change the rest of the book necessarily. Changes the table of contents. But if you have a really good idea for something that's going to happen to a character in chapter 3, it changes every other chapter. So it's a lot more work. The cool thing is, I think life is about being creative. What is the point of life? It's not to pay the mortgage. It's to be, I believe, to be creative, which is right up your alley, which is why I wanted to be on your show. I think, if I can be spiritual for just a little nanosecond here, I think we are all created in the image and likeness of the great creator, whatever your belief system is around that. So whenever we're creating, we are doing our divine mission on earth, or that's what I think. So whenever I feel a creative tug towards something, I go for it. And then oftentimes it also makes money.
Yeah, I love that. Aurora, before we think about the future anymore here, I want to make sure people know where to find you now. Where can we connect with you and learn more about this work?
Well, the easiest way to get more value is actually for free. You can go to Strategic Basics on YouTube. You can also get for free my book, Turn Words into Wealth, if you go to turnwordsintowealth.com, or you can get it wherever books are sold. Most people like to have the print copy so they can write in it. My website is called samepagepublishing.com, because I come on the same page with the experts and authors and entrepreneurs that I work with and help them create compelling media, whether books or videos, that are worth talking about.
Yeah, so good. And I know we connected on LinkedIn, so it's always good to make those business connections. So I
Yes,
appreciate that.
absolutely. Say hi
Yes.
on LinkedIn for sure.
Yes. So as we think about then, Aurora, concrete strategies to go to seven figures, let's just
Yeah.
think about it in that regard. Are there a couple of things that our listeners could start today and say, I got to write this book. I got to get my message down. I got to make that pitch just right. Where would you have this begin?
In the book Turn Words into Wealth, I get into the details of how to do that. And there's 7 different models to make 7 figures from your $1 million message, I call it. It could be your pitch, it could be your book, it could be videos, but you need to have your message clear. The more in-depth step is read the book, but here's a quick thing that people can do. 1, start collecting stories. And here's the format for the story that'll make it easier for you to collect them. What you want is stories that start with a hell and end with a heaven. So you want stories of transformation. So what was the hell that you were in before your breakthrough? Or what was the hell your client is in before you help them? And then don't get caught up in the 49 steps of the bridge. This is a common mistake. Don't get caught up in the 49 steps of the bridge between the hell and the heaven, but then just fast forward. How did your life look after your breakthrough, after you got married, after you started your business, after you had that aha idea and implemented it, or after your client has worked with you and you helped them solve that problem? How did that feel? How did that transform them? Collect those stories. A more advanced version of that is the hero's journey, which most people know from watching any movie. Take Star Wars, for
Yes.
example. Or you might want to read the book Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. So the hero's journey story is a little bit more complex. That's what I do with my clients. But you can start with the hell to heaven and collect those stories, write them down, and then practice delivering them to anyone who will listen so that you have it in your body and you don't have to refer to your notes. And then a third thing that you can do that's really easy that I can explain right here, right now, is myth busting. So the mind is really captured by things that go quickly from one state to another state. So make a list of the top, say, 10 myths in your industry. I'm going to challenge you in a second to give me a myth bust. So the top things that everybody knows that are actually wrong in your experience, and then bust those myths and have those handy, memorize them, practice them, get them short, get them snappy, and be sure that you are busting a myth in common everyday language, not highfalutin language, so that it lands. And it's actually best from a neuroscience point of view to say one thing and then the exact opposite in the same words, just adding a not or changing one word, and then elaborate so that the brain you're actually rewiring the brain of the listener when you do that. So an example would be, the myth is that you need a publisher to sell a boatload of books. The fact is, you don't need a publisher to sell a boatload of books. In fact, Alex Hormozy just sold over $100 million of books in his book launch for his self-published book that won the Guinness Book of World Records. And he did that in August 2025 with his book, 100 Million Money Models. And that book outsold Spare by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, which was published by Random House. So you see how I did that. I hit a common myth. The myth is you need a publisher to sell a boatload of books. The fact is you do not need a publisher to sell a boatload of books. See how that's the same? I just added not, but that's important. That makes the brain go, what? And then I gave the story about Alex Hormozy to back it up. So make a list of 10 myths, and I want to hear one. I want to hear one from you, Mark.
I think many people have if you build it, they will come mentality that all I need to do is write the book and put it out there and I will make book sales. That easy.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to bust it now.
Yes. Oh, so let's turn that upside down. Yes. So I see what you mean. Or that if I have a publisher, they'll do all the work.
Yeah,
so
that's a myth.
Well,
exactly right.
But let's go back. So all
right.
I have to do is write the book. I'll get it up on Amazon, or KDP will do all the work for me. And all I have to do then is count the book sales. I think to bust that myth is you do have to do your own marketing, and it does have to be compelling, and to figure out, as we discussed before, all the channels and the platforms that you could both purpose and repurpose your book to get the attention. Authors like
Brilliant
you
tip,
would come
Doc.
on a podcast like
Right.
mine, and we would make this connection.
Exactly right. In fact, I cringe when I see so many books that have got 1 or 2 reviews. Okay, so a book, people are always sorting for status. A book increases your status if it's a really good book, if you've got traction to prove that other people think it's a good book. Why? Because that's midbrain. Midbrain is always looking for social proof. So what I do with my clients is we have a 3-month launch plan. So 3 months before the book comes out, not 3 months after it comes out. We get them on podcasts, we line up reviews, we apply for awards, we make sure that the cover, the title, the subtitle, that they're all stellar, so that not only will it be a great book that shares their stories and their authority, but that it will satisfy that status check mark so that they get 20 or 40 reviews. In fact, I've got a whole video I recently did on strategic basics about how was actually a podcast host, and he had just launched his book a couple of days before. And I'm like, I see you have a new book. It looks good, but I see there's no reviews and no awards. And I was guessing no sales. He's, yeah, I didn't have time to do that. And now I'm getting on a plane tomorrow, going for a world tour, for a speaking tour. And I'm like, would you like me to solve that problem for you? In just a couple of days, I made the book a #1 Amazon bestseller and got him a bunch of reviews. And he looks good now.
Yes,
It's awesome.
I love that. Aurora, what a lot of not only practical advice, steps and metaphors and 3 parts and 27 parts and all of these great things, but a mindset shift. This is what I've really enjoyed, that there's one way to look at it, but then there's a shift that we can make to think of it differently, that not only do we have a great story, but we've got a great way of telling the story that can be more persuasive, more impactful, and more profitable.
And in the age of AI, I think the 4 human superpowers that you have, one of them is your story. Nobody else has your story. So it's not generic AI drivel when you share your story, but share it effectively and then find ways that you can use AI to double down and scale sharing your unique human story in a valuable way. And that's by doing things one-to-many, whether it's videos or books or blog posts or that kind of thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. My guest has been Aurora Winter. I'll put all your links in the show notes because we're going to want to be sure to connect. I really appreciate you being on the show, Aurora. I look forward to staying connected.
Me too. Thanks for your time, Mark.
And listeners, I want to thank our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee. They've been fueling creative conversations like this everywhere. And you can enjoy 10% off your first order at whitecloudcoffee.com. And of course, before you go, I want you to be able to download a free copy of my ebook, A World of Creativity, with lots of interviews from our first season of A World of Creativity. You can visit mark-stinson.com. And then join us again next time. We're going to continue these round-the-world conversations with creatives everywhere about how we get inspired, but also how we organize ideas. And as we've learned today, how to gain the confidence and the connections to launch our work out into the world. So until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we're going to keep unlocking your world of creativity.